The selection hall smelled like recycled air, burnt circuits, and a little too much hope. Rows of soldiers stood in formation, armor polished, faces stiff, pretending they weren't terrified of being paired with a complete stranger by a glorified matchmaking algorithm. The Harmony Directive called it scientific emotional alignment. Most of us just called it cosmic roulette. I wasn't nervous, or at least that's what I told myself while my palms sweated inside my gloves. Lieutenant Ryan Hale, decorated pilot, 5 missions deep in the Outer Rim Wars, and about to let a machine decide my love life. My last match had been a botanist who fainted at the sound of pulse cannons. Romantic dinners had involved discussing soil pH levels. I still couldn't tell if she dumped me or photosynthesized away. A holographic voice echoed through the chamber. "Lieutenant Hale, please step forward." The screen before me glowed blue, flickering with cascading genetic patterns, compatibility percentages, and something called bioempathic resonance. It all looked impressive until the data stopped and turned red. The computer made a noise I had never heard before. A few soldiers glanced over. Someone muttered, "Uh-oh." Then the announcement came. Lieutenant Ryan Hale, assigned partner, Jaren of Cathar. The silence that followed could have frozen plasma. Someone in the back whispered, "He's dead." Another coughed, "Send flowers." I stared at the name, wondering if it was a typo. Cathar warriors were famous for 2 things: tearing through enemy fleets and occasionally their own allies. The last human paired with one ended up requesting early cryosleep, permanently. "Please proceed to the bonding chamber," the hologram said, cheerful as ever. The chamber doors opened with a hiss. Inside stood my fate, or possibly my executioner. She was tall, at least 7 feet, built like the concept of gravity had personally insulted her. Her skin shimmered faintly, etched with glowing lines that pulsed with rhythm like alien constellations. Her long ears curved elegantly upward, twitching slightly as if scanning the room for prey, and her eyes, amber, fierce, and very, very unimpressed, locked onto me. She considered that, then smiled faintly, just enough to make every survival instinct in my body scream. "You think I would eat you? Statistically, 93% chance." She laughed. It was the sound of metal cracking in a forge, sharp and wild. The translator drone shorted out trying to interpret it. Sparks flew. She didn't even flinch. The officiator cleared his throat nervously. "Please place your hands on the sync console for neural compatibility confirmation." Jaren slammed her hand down with enough force to make the console beep in pain. I followed, much more gently. A thin filament of light wrapped around our wrists, connecting our neural data. I felt a sudden jolt, a flood of sensations not my own. Strength, rage, confusion, and something deeper, almost tender, buried beneath the chaos. Then, as quickly as it came, it faded. "Pairing successful," the console announced. "Emotional variance, 99.8%. The room went silent again. Even the machine hesitated as if confused by its own math. "Variance." I repeated, "That's bad, right?" One of the scientists nodded grimly. "It means you two are the least compatible match in directive history." Jaren smirked. "Perfect." By the time we left the hall, word had already spread. Soldiers stared as we walked past, some whispering bets on how long I'd last. She ignored them all, her steps heavy, graceful, certain. I jogged to keep up, trying to act casual while also not getting crushed under her war boots. "So," I said, glancing at her sideways. "You like music," she grunted, "only the kind that kills silence." "Same," I said, "we're already bonding." She turned her head, studying me with those glowing eyes. "You joke often." "It's a defense mechanism," I said. "Like armor, only less effective." Her expression softened, barely perceptible, but there. Then she looked away. "You will need armor." When we reached our shared quarters, the door slid open to reveal a room designed for harmony, 2 beds, soft lighting, even a mural of twin moons over calm water. A pre-packaged fantasy of unity. She eyed it like it was an insult. "This room is weak," she declared. It's supposed to inspire comfort, I said. She walked over to the wall and punched it. The metal dented. Better. I sighed, setting my bag down. You break it, you fix it. I will not fix weakness. Good, because maintenance is out of my pay grade. She frowned, then laughed again, louder this time, genuine. It echoed through the room, deep and fierce. For a moment I caught a glimpse of something behind the ferocity, a spark of curiosity, maybe even warmth. Then she caught me staring, and the air shifted again. Do not mistake amusement for affection, she warned. Wouldn't dream of it, I said. Besides, I'm still recovering from the handshake. Her ears twitched, and for the first time she looked almost amused. She walked to her side of the room, sat cross-legged on the floor, and began dismantling her gauntlets piece by piece, muttering in her language. The glowing marks along her arms dimmed slowly, syncing with her breathing. I lay back on my bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering how I'd explain this to Command. Yes, she threatened to eat me, but it's going great, thanks. The lights dimmed automatically for sleep mode. Just as I was drifting off, her voice broke the silence. Human, she said softly. Yeah, you do not smell weak. I smiled into the dark. Best compliment I've gotten all year. Her quiet chuckle rumbled through the room. Maybe, just maybe, this wouldn't kill me. Or if it did, at least it'd be an interesting obituary. The first week of cohabitation felt less like a military pairing and more like surviving a live fire experiment run by someone who hated walls. Jaren did asterisk walk through the quarters. She patrolled. Every time the ventilation system hissed, she assumed we were under attack and reached for her plasma spear. I stopped counting how many times I had to say, "It's just the air filter, please don't dismember it." The mess hall was worse. The moment we entered, conversation stopped. "So, you speak to the makers." I mostly complained to them about coffee shortages. Her ears twitched again, an expression I was slowly learning to translate as mild amusement. "You joke when you should fear." "Fear's boring," I said. "Besides, it never improves the coffee." When she laughed, it echoed around the dome like thunder. For a second, I forgot that she could crush me with one hand. There was something oddly contagious about her joy, wild, honest, untamed. Our bonding sessions with the Harmony officer, however, were less joyful. The counselor, a stiff, holographic therapist who looked permanently stuck in buffering mode, kept insisting we establish mutual emotional resonance. "Try complimenting each other," it suggested. Jaren blinked slowly. "Your skull seems adequately protected." The hologram process that then said, "Good start, Lieutenant Hale." I scratched my neck. You have great posture." The hologram glitched slightly, possibly reconsidering its career. "Progress." Jaren frowned. "These rituals are foolish." "Agreed," I said, "but if we skip them, they make us do trust falls." "What is a trust fall?" "Something that ends with me in the infirmary." That got a real laugh out of her, which the hologram noted as positive response. I suspected the system wasn't used to Cathari, laughter registering as a threat display. Later that night, I caught her sitting by the viewport, watching the stars scroll past. The station orbited the planet Aegir 9, a blue-green marble wrapped in fog. She stared at it silently, her ears tilted back. "You miss your home?" I asked. She didn't look away. "Cathar is not home, it is memory." "That sounds poetic," I said, "or traumatic." "Yes." Her bluntness disarmed me. There was no drama in her tone, no sorrow, just fact. I sat beside her, the hum of the ship filling the silence. "You ever been to Earth?" She shook her head. "Your world has too much sky. Too much sky. It makes you believe you are small." "I am small," I said. "Especially next to you." She smiled faintly, the kind that made me forget to breathe for half a second. "Then it is good you know your place." The following day, Command assigned us to joint combat simulations. The briefing officer looked nervous, as though he'd drawn the short straw. "You two will pilot a dual-control strike craft. Objective, synchronize maneuvers under pressure." "Under pressure?" I asked. "Define pressure." "Live plasma rounds," he said. I sighed. "Of course." Inside the simulator, the cockpit glowed with holographic panels. Jaren sat beside me, adjusting controls with hands the size of my helmet. "You fly?" she asked. "I try," I said. "You fight." I succeed. The countdown started. 3, 2, 1. The simulator jolted, launching us into the void of artificial space. Drones appeared on the radar, fast, aggressive. I gripped the controls, weaving through their plasma fire. Jaren's reflexes were lightning. She targeted them with uncanny precision, each shot a piece of brutal choreography. "Left flank," I yelled. She moved right. "Your other left." "I have both," she shouted back. The ship spun violently. I nearly swallowed my tongue. But somehow we came out of the spin aligned perfectly with the enemy drones. She fired. 3 hits, 3 kills. The simulator beeped victory, confused how chaos turned into success. When we emerged, command officers stared, slack-jawed. One whispered, "They actually did it." Jaren grinned, proud and fierce. "See, harmony achieved." I was still dizzy. Harmony feels a lot like internal bleeding. That night, over reheated rations, she watched me carefully. "You are not weak," she said again, almost thoughtful. "Careful," I said. "Keep saying nice things and people will think you like me." She tilted her head, considering. "Perhaps I do." I froze. "You're joking, right?" She smirked. "Now you know how it feels." "They don't like G-forces." Jaren shrugged, inspecting a scorch mark on her armor. "Then your organs must become warriors." "Great," I said. "I'll tell my spleen to start lifting weights." Her ears twitched, the Cathari version of laughter. That night, while I was recalibrating my ship's targeting system, she appeared beside me without a sound. She did that a lot, moved like a shadow, which was impressive considering she weighed as much as a cargo loader. "You are slow," she said, peering over my shoulder. "I call it precision," I replied. "Engineers call it procrastination." She leaned closer, her bioluminescent markings glowing softly in the dark. "In Cathar culture, speed shows strength. And in human culture, coffee shows intelligence," I said. "We're both doomed." Her hand brushed against mine briefly as she examined the controls. Her skin was warmer than it should have been, like heat stored from starlight. For a moment, she looked almost curious. Then she stepped back abruptly, her expression unreadable. "You think too much," she said. "Occupational hazard," I replied. "If I don't, we explode. Explosions make life interesting." I gave her a look. "You say that way too often." The next day, our orders changed. We were being deployed to Faro's Roman 4 *, a mining colony at the edge of the neutral zone. Officially, it was a routine security check. Unofficially, it meant trouble. The Cathari had history there, unpleasant history. When we arrived, the atmosphere shimmered with static storms, and the colony's dome flickered under the pressure. The locals eyed us warily, whispering when they saw Jaren. She ignored them, but I caught the stiffness in her shoulders. Inside the command center, a miner handed me a datapad. "Strange readings under Sector 9. Looks like old tech pre-directive." Jaren took the pad from me and studied it. "This pattern, it's Cathari." I frowned. "Your people built something here." "Not my people," she said darkly. "The scientists who made us." That word made hung heavy in the air. We descended into the tunnels together, flashlights slicing through the dust. The air grew colder, the walls covered with markings that pulsed faintly when she passed. I noticed how her breathing changed, deeper, slower, as if the place itself recognized her. At the end of the tunnel, we found a chamber filled with dormant machinery, sleek, skeletal structures humming with faint power. In the center stood a pod, glass cracked, light flickering weakly inside. Jaren approached it slowly. "What is it?" I asked. Her voice was quiet. "A cradle." "For what?" She touched the glass and it glowed brighter. "For soldiers like me. The first ones. They were born here not from mothers but from algorithms and ambition." The translator drone didn't bother interpreting that. The silence said enough. She looked at me then, and for the first time since I'd met her, there was no bravado, only a kind of grief too ancient for words. They made us to fight, to obey, to be perfect weapons. I stepped closer, unsure what to say, and you disobeyed. Her lips twitched. We were too human for their comfort. That line hit me harder than I expected. She turned away before I could respond, staring at the dormant machines. Suddenly, the floor trembled. Lights flared, alarms shrieked. The machinery woke. Panels unfolded, revealing dormant drones activating for the first time in decades. The system had detected movement in us. "Please tell me they're friendly," I said. "They are not," she said, drawing her plasma blades. "They are prototypes. They do not distinguish between friend and foe." "Of course not." We fought our way back through the tunnels, the air thick with smoke and sparks. Jaren moved like lightning, blades cutting through metal like fabric. I fired my pulse rifle, yelling something heroic that came out more like terrified screaming. One drone lunged at me. She caught it midair, slammed it into the wall, and grinned at me through the chaos. "Good reflexes, human. Pure survival instinct," I shouted back. By the time we reached the surface, the colony was in uproar, alarms blaring across the dome. Jaren sealed the tunnel with an explosion that shook the ground. The debris settled around us, glowing faintly in the dust storm. Back aboard our ship, I watched her from the cockpit as we left Foro's IV behind. She sat motionless, staring at the stormy planet below. "What you saw down there," I said quietly, "that wasn't your fault." Her ears twitched once, but she didn't look at me. "It was my beginning. And maybe your chance." Toleration. What a comforting concept. The instructor started a lecture on interspecies negotiations. Jaren's attention span was roughly 30 seconds before she started dismantling her seat armrest with a quiet hum. I noticed she worked with a rhythm, each removal precise and almost musical. "You enjoy that," I whispered. "Better than listening to humans pretend to govern," she muttered. "Careful," I said. "They'll write that in your file." "They can try," she said, flicking a loose screw across the room like a tiny missile. After the lecture, we were sent to a simulation that Command had euphemistically called Cooperative Operations Training. The purpose: test whether mismatched pairs could function under stress. In practice, it was two pilots jammed into a fighter craft while the enemy AI fired relentlessly. I had flown plenty of solo missions, but with Jaren beside me, every action felt unpredictable. She didn't just follow my lead, she reshaped it. "Bank left," I shouted. "Left is weak," she countered, spinning the ship the other way. Okay, right then." The cockpit alarm sounded. The enemy drones swarmed, plasma streaking past. I fired blindly while she tapped the controls like a master pianist, each strike calculated, lethal. Somehow, the chaos synchronized. Drones exploded in a series of bright flashes, the simulation humming with our unexpected success. When the session ended, the instructor looked pale. "That wasn't supposed to work." Jaren leaned back, smirking. "Sometimes chaos is better than obedience." Back aboard the station, I decided it was finally time to ask the question I'd been avoiding. "Jaren, why volunteer for pairing if you dislike humans?" She paused, her long ears tilting back thoughtfully. "They do not understand Cathar. I wanted to show them that we can choose, to feel something beyond the directive. Even if it is with a human. Even if it's me," I asked, trying to sound casual. Her amber eyes flickered with something I couldn't name. "Even if it is you," she said softly, almost a whisper. The confession hung in the air, heavy and unspoken. I wanted to say something clever, something brave, but my usual humor failed me. Instead, I offered a weak smile. "I'm honored then, and terrified." She chuckled, a low, vibrating sound, and it made the air between us feel warmer than the station's heaters. Days later, Command assigned us to reconnaissance near the Dathra asteroid belt, a volatile region where rogue warships had been reported. The mission seemed straightforward: scout, report, and avoid contact. Jaren didn't believe in avoiding. "The asteroids are weak," she said. "We will test them." As we approached, I realized she meant it literally. Her ship maneuvered through the asteroid field with frightening precision, dodging massive rocks by mere centimeters. Each movement seemed reckless, yet perfectly timed. I began to understand why Command tolerated this wild pairing. They had no choice but to admit her instincts were extraordinary. Halfway through the belt, sensors picked up a hidden ship, cloaked in stealth tech far advanced for the sector. I froze. "That's not on the map." "Neither are you," she said, glancing at me briefly before locking eyes on the enemy vessel. "Focus on survival." "Survival, right," I muttered, gripping my controls as plasma beams began slicing the void. Jaren's response was instinctive. She activated countermeasures, rammed the asteroid for cover, and fired with a precision that felt almost alive. Amid the chaos, I saw something I hadn't before: her loyalty. Fierce, unshakable, almost human in its depth, yet untainted by the constraints of our society. She wasn't just protecting herself, she was protecting me. When we fought, the alert sirens blared across the station, harsh and insistent, cutting through the early morning calm like a plasma blade. Red lights spun across the walls, casting long shadows, and for once the entire crew was awake before the caffeine dispensers even kicked in. Jaren's eyes narrowed, her long ears twitching like twin radars picking up every vibration. "Unknown fleet approaching," the comm officer stammered. "Outer colonies are under attack. Orders: evacuate or engage." Jaren didn't wait for orders. She didn't even wait for a plan. She grabbed my arm and hauled me toward the launch bay. "We engage," she said, voice low, dangerous, like a promise or a threat. I couldn't tell which. "What about Command?" I asked, trying to keep pace. "They will either follow or die," she replied, her stride unwavering. "We are alive, we act." I followed her, heart thudding. Somehow this felt natural, terrifyingly natural. The chaos of her instincts fit like a second skin, and I realized that surviving next to her had become less about skill and more about trusting that her recklessness had a strange, precise method. By the time we boarded the strike craft, the fleet was fully visible. Hundreds of ships, cloaked and hostile, moved in patterns that seemed chaotic until her eyes scanned them. Jaren's hands danced across the controls, a blur of motion and intent. "Hold on, human," she said, a smirk playing at her lips. "This will be uncomfortable." Plasma fire lit up the void. I gripped the co-pilot controls, firing in random bursts, trying not to collide with her elegant, brutal maneuvers. And yet somehow, we moved as one. Her instincts led, mine followed, and the enemy fleet was a storm we navigated like water. "Left flank," I shouted. "Left is a trap," she countered. "Follow me." We dodged, we weaved, we struck. Every successful hit felt like luck, but I knew better. It was her, pure, untamed skill. She laughed when a drone tried to ram us. "Pathetic," she muttered, slicing it in half midair. Halfway through, one of the larger ships broke through the outer defense. I panicked for a second, but Jaren's hand shot out, gripping mine briefly. "Focus," she said, "or die trying." I swallowed. Focused, fired, survived. When we finally cleared the initial engagement, the enemy fleet regrouped. Jaren glanced at me, amber eyes reflecting the distant stars. "We finish this before they breathe again." I nodded, trying not to sound like a terrified child. "Right, full send." Our coordination became instinctual. She would fire, I would support. I called maneuvers. She executed them with deadly precision. At one point, she even tossed me a quip mid-battle. "Do not get in my way, human. Your speed is laughable." "I'll try not to slow your art," I replied, ducking a plasma blast. By the time we reached the fleet's command vessel, I was sweating, hearts racing, adrenaline coursing through every vein. Jaren moved like a shadow across the enemy hull, slicing through defenses with her blades while I handled navigation and support systems. Somehow we became a single lethal entity, our imperfections fitting together in an unpredictable pattern of survival. Inside the command vessel, the AI controlling the defenses hesitated, confused by the coordination. That split second was all we needed. Jaren's voice was calm, almost casual over the comms. "Shall we?" Yes, I said, gripping the secondary controls. Let's make history. The explosion that followed was beautiful, terrifying, and perfectly synchronized. The enemy fleet faltered, then disintegrated like stardust under a god's whim. Silence followed, a heavy, almost reverent quiet. I exhaled slowly, shaking. We did it. I can't believe we did it. Jaren tilted her head, inspecting the remains of the battle through the viewport. You survived, she said simply. That is enough for now. I tried to joke, voice trembling. Survived, sure, mostly alive, definitely traumatized. She glanced at me, a faint glimmer of amusement in her eyes. You exaggerate, mostly. Later, when we docked and the crew debriefed, people whispered about our performance. Some called it luck. Some called it bravery. Command officers called it unprecedented. Jaren ignored them all, sitting silently, polishing her weapons. I found her in the observation deck hours later, staring at the galaxy as if nothing had changed. You could have let me die out there, I said quietly, almost accusingly. She didn't look at me at first. That would be inefficient, she said finally. I prefer live assets, particularly if they amuse me. I laughed, a mixture of relief and disbelief. Amuse you, that's comforting. She finally turned, amber eyes meeting mine. Perhaps. You are learning human slowly. I leaned against the console, exhausted. Slowly is my specialty. Her laugh was low, rumbling, dangerous, and warm all at once. Then you have survived training, combat, and my company. That is more than most can claim. I smiled faintly, knowing it wasn't a compliment that came easily from her. I'll take it. Outside the viewport, stars streaked past as we left the battlefield behind. Inside, two improbable companions shared a quiet victory, bound not by harmony, but by chaos, instinct, and the strange, unbreakable thread of trust that had formed between us. The universe was still dangerous, still unpredictable, but for the first time, it felt like we could face it together. And maybe, just maybe, survive it. The void outside the ship stretched like a black ocean, stars scattered across it like scattered memories. I sat in the pilot's chair, hands resting lightly on the controls, though I wasn't flying. Jaren moved across the cabin with a fluidity that made gravity seem irrelevant, her long ears angled as if scanning for something beyond sensors. She didn't speak at first, only watched the stars, the hum of the engines, and me. Are you thinking? I asked cautiously. Always, she said, even when you hope I am not. I chuckled. That's comforting in a terrifying kind of way. Her amber eyes finally found mine. You have improved, she said. Your reflexes are no longer painfully slow. Your judgments less predictable. I approve. I tilted my head. That's high praise. Her lips twitched, almost a smile. I am not known for false praise. We had spent weeks surviving the edge of chaos together, navigating rogue fleets, unmapped asteroid belts, and the occasional diplomatic disaster. Yet, despite every brush with death, every miscalculated maneuver, the unspoken thread between us had strengthened. I realized that I trusted her in ways I had never trusted another human. And that realization both thrilled and terrified me. The mission ahead was unlike anything we had faced. Intelligence had picked up a hidden Cathari war network, ships cloaked and silent, moving toward a critical junction in the galactic supply routes. Command wanted a strike team to neutralize it, but Jaren and I were acting as scouts, meant to locate and mark the fleet before the main forces arrived. She didn't wait for instructions. We do not scout cautiously, she said, securing her blades. We asterisk find them, then we survive. I swallowed. Survive, yes, we've been practicing that. We approached the rendezvous point above a shattered moon. Its surface glowed faintly with traces of past battles, craters filled with rusted metal, remnants of ancient Cathari technology buried beneath layers of dust. She scanned the area with her enhanced vision, ears twitching like radar arrays. There, she said suddenly, pointing toward a patch of dark space. Movement. I squinted at the sensors, tiny blips almost invisible but coordinated. Cloaked ships, I said, Her eyes glimmered. "Do not underestimate them. They are Cathari like me, obedient only to their code." I realized the danger then. This wasn't just reconnaissance. It was a trap waiting to happen, a test designed for perfection, for lethal coordination. And yet she didn't hesitate. She engaged the stealth cloak on our own ship and maneuvered toward the fleet with silent precision. Inside the cockpit, tension crackled like energy. I followed her lead, firing countermeasures when she signaled. Every movement was instinctual, unspoken, and perfectly synchronized. At one point, I realized we were no longer two pilots. We were one entity, each anticipating the other's moves without speaking. A sudden burst of light illuminated the fleet, plasma cannons firing, shields flaring. I panicked for a second, but Jaren's hand shot out, gripping mine briefly. "Do not falter," she said, her voice steady, almost soothing amid the chaos. We counterattacked, weaving through fire, targeting critical points. The enemy AI adapted quickly, but Jaren adapted faster. She executed maneuvers that seemed impossible, turning near collisions into tactical advantages. I fired when instructed, my heart hammering in time with the ship's pulse. In the midst of battle, she initiated the warbond ritual. I didn't fully understand what it meant until neural links formed, a sudden flood of her instincts, memories, and raw emotion merging with mine. I felt her rage, her fear, her joy, and most unexpectedly, her loyalty. The bond was overwhelming, yet grounding. For the first time, I could predict her reactions perfectly, not through logic but through instinct. We moved as one, an unstoppable force against the hidden fleet. The enemy began to falter, disoriented by the precision and coordination of our dual consciousness. Jaren's voice echoed in my mind as much as in the cabin. "Strike now, do not hesitate." We unleashed the final sequence of attacks, crippling the command vessel. The remaining ships scattered, their stealth technology failing under our combined onslaught. When the last blip vanished from the radar, silence returned, thick, heavy, and almost surreal. I exhaled, feeling the bond fade but not entirely. Something remained, a tether stronger than any chain command could create. I looked at her, sweat glistening on her brow, eyes glowing faintly with residual bioluminescence. "You survived," she said quietly. "And you didn't eat me," I replied, attempting humor. She tilted her head, lips twitching. "Do not mistake survival for favor." "Sure," I said, smiling, "but I'll take it anyway." We sat together in the cockpit, staring out at the void. Stars streaked past like ribbons, indifferent to the chaos we had just navigated. I realized then that the war bond had changed something fundamental between us. We were no longer just companions forced together by the directive. We were partners, wild, unpredictable, and unstoppable. "Do you ever wonder," I asked cautiously, "if this us was meant to happen?" Jaren's ears twitched, her gaze distant. "Destiny is not meant," she said finally. "It is claimed, and we claim it together." I smiled faintly, a warmth spreading through me that had nothing to do with the ship's heaters. Outside, the galaxy stretched endlessly, full of danger, mystery, and possibility. Inside, two improbable allies, human and Cathari, chaotic and measured, sat side by side, ready to face whatever came next. And for the first time, I felt certain of one thing. Whatever the universe threw at us, we would meet it as one. The galaxy seemed quieter now, but only just. The battles, the chaos, the near-death moments, they had shaped a rhythm to life that neither of us had expected. Jaren and I moved through the station corridors side by side, not as soldier and companion, not as human and Cathari, but as something else entirely. A team forged in instinct, chaos, and unexpected trust. Command had been reluctant to debrief us together. The reports were unprecedented. A human surviving Cathari warbond pairing, neutralizing a hidden fleet, navigating impossible maneuvers, and somehow maintaining life. We walked into the debriefing room and officers stared, some in awe, some in fear. "Lieutenant Hale," one said, adjusting his holopad nervously, "your performance extraordinary. And your partner Jaren, Her efficiency was unprecedented. But she didn't acknowledge him. She simply stood, arms crossed, glowing markings faint in the low lights, eyes surveying the room like it had offended her by existing. I realized then that I had become accustomed to her intensity, to the aura of unpredictability that had once terrified me. "We survived," I said quietly, leaning slightly into her side. Her amber eyes flicked to me. "We survived," she echoed, voice softening in a way I had rarely heard. The debrief continued, discussing new protocols, strategy updates, and potential diplomatic interventions. I listened, but my attention kept drifting to Jaren.